Hello, my name is Joe McRae, and for the last 9.5 years I've been the Associate Director of Communications at North Staffordshire Combined Healthcare NHS Trust. I'd like to welcome you to this special edition of our Combined Minds show. Combined Minds is the showcase where we show innovation, new thinking, new ideas in a way that we hope will generate some interest, some enthusiasm, and also get people thinking about the art of the possible, particularly on cutting edge techniques. And for this edition, we're going to look at a topic of how can we harness artificial intelligence to transform learning and training. Now, for those of you who are familiar with our adoption of new technology and new ways of working and new tools and techniques, you'll know we've been doing this for a very long time in combined healthcare. But to just set the scene and set the context for this discussion about artificial intelligence, I just want to run us through some of the things we've been doing over the past number of years that's taken us to this position. So if we just start way back in 2019. In 2019, we introduced NHS Combinations. NHS Combinations was a podcast. Podcasts in those days weren't actually that common. In fact, we launched NHS Combinations in a podcast the very same week that the BBC launched BBC Sounds. It was the very first frontline podcast in the NHS. Healthcare organisations, national organisations had dabbled with it. No NHS frontline trust had launched a podcast. And so we were very much at the forefront of thinking about how to harness this new way of engaging with people. And it's been a great success. We've now got over 100 episodes in our Cross Combinations podcast. The latest one only came out last week, a discussion with Fraser Mahmood and Ben Richards, two of our exec directors, talking about diversity and inclusion in the NHS. And over that time, we've had over 21,000 listens to that podcast. So we're very pleased with NHS Combinations and using podcasts as a way of spreading topics of interest and learning. So that was 2019. We then followed it up in 2022 with CTV, Combined Television. CTV was the very first in the NHS, a digital TV station. It's available on site, online, and on demand. So the idea was lots of the content that we wanted people to be able to enjoy, we wanted them to be able to do it at a time of their choosing, at a place of their choosing, and in a way that was convenient. So on site, CTV content is carried across screens all over our trust, and that's not just in the big screen at Harplands Hospital where we have it, but also in locations across all of our community locations. It's a really great way of getting engaging digital content across to all of our teams, whether they work in the community or whether they work in acute or whether they work in primary care. On CTV, we have videos, we have promos, we have shows. Combined Minds is one of those shows. You might even be watching it on CTV. We also use it for broadcasting our AGM, including our animated financial review our animated financial review of the year, our quality review of the year. We also use CTV to live stream our Reach Staff Awards. So live streams, events, promotions, content, all of this is available on CTV, and we're really pleased with it. We followed that up also in 2022 with CVR, Combined Virtual Reality. Having gone with podcasts for audio and then with digital content, we then started to look at virtual reality content. Again, we were at the forefront in the NHS of doing this. We believe we were the first frontline NHS trust to do this, and the first product that we launched was on World Delirium Day, when we created a virtual reality delirium experience whereby anybody could put on a headset, either an Apple Vision Pro or an Oculus Pro, and in doing so they would find themselves inside the head of a person on a hospital bed experiencing delirium. And the idea was it was a way of spreading empathy, so that you could understand what it would be like to be in a hospital bed experiencing an episode of delirium, but the staff not knowing what was going on and treating you with lack of compassion. We've also since then used it for events. We even had Robbie Williams appearing in virtual reality to give a message to our staff at the in our Reach Staff Awards. And we've also done virtual walkthroughs of all of our locations so that people, before they come and experience things like our psychiatric intensive care unit, or if they've got a loved one going into a dementia ward, can actually experience what the facilities before their loved one goes there. That has been featured within the House of Commons. We were invited down to the House of Commons Science and Innovation Technology Committee specifically to present on the work we're doing on virtual reality. The virtual reality delirium training has had over 250,000 views worldwide. It has been a phenomenal success. And we've also done versions for Health Education Innovation Wales, a Welsh language version, and even a version for a European hospital. So combined virtual reality is something that we are very, very proud of. And of course, same as CTV and the same as combinations, all of this has been produced in-house by my team here at Combined. So the final thing we did in 2024 was we introduced Combined Touchscreen Training, CTT. Now, Combined Touchscreen Training is actually delivered using this facility here. I'm standing in front of what's called a virtual production volume, these large size, large format electronic screens. Virtual production volumes are unknown in the NHS. We've had lots of people who've walked through the door to see these and their jaw has dropped. They've never seen anything like this in a normal environment like the boardroom where we're presenting. You can have some large acutes do sort of immersive rooms, but they don't tend to be in mainstream locations, so that their use is quite limited. We use this for all sorts of facilities, including presenting shows like this. But one of the things we do is combine touchscreen training, and you will be looking at this later on in this presentation. But just to give you a heads up of what it does, it basically provides life-size experiences. It can place you within a digitally created environment. It has interactive sessions, and you'll see in a little while how that interactivity works. And it's also integrated with online services as well. So it's not just interaction within this room. It also can be integrated with online quizzes, and you'll be seeing that in a little while. So, given that track record, podcasting, digital TV, virtual reality, touchscreen interactivity, of course it's no surprise that we would be interested in looking at how to harness artificial intelligence. Now, as innovators, we know and we're very familiar with that curve of a new technology or a new idea, and the curve between it being early adopters and then going into business as usual and mainstream. And AI is still really at the early days of this. We've seen it with the web many, many years ago. We've seen it with social media. We've seen it with similar things. And what basically happens, and where we are with AI at the moment, is we're at that stage where lots of people are talking about AI. You cannot move for people talking about AI. Lots of people are unnecessarily worried about AI. Lots of people are wondering, how could we actually adopt it? Some people are thinking, is it a fad, etc. We're at that early stage with AI. And so when we were looking here, we're looking at, well, how could we look at AI, and rather than just do it as a fad, how could we use it to deliver something really, really impactful? And so that's where we are now looking at combined artificial intelligence, CAI. And the area we chose was this. We chose it to, how can we harness artificial intelligence to really transform our learning and training? And when we were looking at this, we thought three things. How could we harness AI? Could we harness AI to create really striking digital environments? Okay. Could we harness AI to create digital trainers so that people consuming training did not have to rely on a physical trainer being present or book into a specific session? They could have content delivered to them by digital trainers at a time and a location of their choosing. And could we harness AI to make training multi-mode? So taking one piece of content and using AI to bring that across a whole range of modes. Those were the three questions we asked ourselves. Could we create striking environments? Could we create digital trainers? And could we make training multi-mode? And what I'm going to show you now is how we answered those questions. So let's start with creating striking environments. Okay. Now here, we didn't want to just use AI as a tool that comes in towards the end of a production process or creative process and makes a few tweaks, etc. We wanted to embed AI right at the start of the creative process and really see how we could use our imagination to create something really striking. And to do that, we primarily relied on the Adobe suite of tools, AI. Adobe are doing some fantastic work in AI with their Firefly and generative fill for those of you who are involved in the industry. And so we looked at particularly at Firefly and AI. And we started by saying, well, okay, what would be a good environment to launch? And we thought, do you know what? How about a Victorian classroom? Could we create a Victorian classroom? So we went on to Adobe Firefly and we thought, give me a Victorian classroom. And hey presto, it created for us a Victorian classroom. And we thought, well, that's okay, that's fine. It's got the Victorian desks there, it's got a little blackboard, but then we thought, well, you know, if we're going to actually produce some content there, we can't just have a messy blackboard there. So first of all, we said, look, can you make it bigger? So we just made it bigger. And then get rid of all of that, the stuff that's on there, and just add some chalk dust. And we thought, do you know what? That's a good start. That's a good start. We've got a nice Victorian blackboard there. But then you see, we were thinking, we really want an immersive environment. We can't, so you can see we've got all of this white space here, okay. So using artificial intelligence, using all the AI tools, first of all, we said, right, well, make that a bit bigger for us, will you? And so, hey presto, it created for us an entire Victorian classroom. Okay. And then we started to tweak this a little bit because that's one of the wonderful things about AI. You can tweak it, you can have ideas, you can experiment. So the first thing we said is, right, okay, well, let's get a little bookshelf there and let's get a standard lamp. Why would we get a little standard lamp? That'd be good. And then let's clear the shelves and let's put some boxes on there, toy boxes on there. And for a little bit of fun, let's have another box with some teddies. And you'll see shortly how we use these boxes in order to be able to give access to bite-sized chunks of learning. So, a Victorian classroom, completely presented and delivered entirely in AI from start to finish. Okay, and as you can see from me standing here, for the people in the room, you looking here, it is like you're in a Victorian classroom. Okay, and so we also then started to play with some other things. We are launching an electronic patient record at the Trust. The Orbis electronic patient record. So we thought, well, why don't we have a more sort of futuristic training room? And so we had a sort of, matrix style here and some boxes on the shelves there. And then we got thinking and we thought, well, what about a Daedlow theatre? That would be good. So again, a presentation screen, a sort of Daedlow theatre, that would be a nice environment. Then we thought, what about a glacier? Why not put ourselves on a beautiful glacier if we wanted to receive some stuff? Again, so it created for us a glacier. And then we got really thinking. We thought, let's take ourselves to the Caribbean. Let's have a tropical beach with some shelves, etc. Of course, a lot of this was just fun. It was just having fun, and there's nothing wrong with having fun in the creative process. But it just gives you an idea of literally, if we can think about it, if we can have an idea, if we can try it out, we can harness AI and it will produce these environments for us. Okay, and so what we're doing is we're taking the hardware that we've introduced, we're taking the virtual production volume, we're taking the LED walls, we're combining it with state-of-the-art software through Adobe, Firefly and Generative Fill, but what it's actually doing is enabling us to use our imagination to produce something quite striking. So we've even got something here where we have our own TV studio, CTV studio, where we can actually put our chief executive to present our review of the year film. This is the review of the year film that we produced for our AGM. Again, available in the room, very strikingly, available online through CTV, but it's just another way in which we can build lovely environments so we can get real high impact of the stuff we want to show. So there we go. So that's CAI. Okay. The first step was to create digital, to create these striking environments. So the second step was okay. So we've got the environments and we've got some of the content, and as we showed you just there, we can film human beings and put them on there. But then we thought, no, what about digital trainers? Now here, what we did was we were actually harnessing AI to build on an idea that we had actually during COVID. During the COVID pandemic, of course, social distancing was happening. There was no way we could get people together into a single room to consume content. And so at that time we were thinking, how can we get communications and messages and information across? And that's where we started to think about digital trainers. Okay, so originally in creating digital trainers, our original digital avatars were produced during COVID, and the first was Cara, our combined avatar for recovery action. We also used the voices of our own staff to actually be the voices of these people. So Cara was actually voiced by Lydia in our governance team. Okay, the second one was Chris. Combined healthcare recovery information specialist. Chris was a person who could actually tell people how you could think, how you could introduce social distancing and all of the rules that we needed to be safe during COVID. We also introduced Fred. Fred is our finance and resources expert in delivery. Fred is one of our favourites, and we've used Fred many years. He is the digital face every year of our animated financial review of the year film, and we've just completed a film using Fred, which teaches our staff all about the cost improvement program and the processes and the procedures they need to follow in order to meet their requirements and identify projects that could be help with our cost improvement program. So you can see there that what we're doing is, yes, we're taking innovative ideas. Yes, we're taking artificial intelligence and design, but we're actually applying them to core things that the trust needs to deliver. So we're talking about recovery action and recovery information. We're talking with Chris about COVID and all of the IPC, and with Fred, we're talking about dry topics like the cost improvement program. But I want you to introduce you to two of our flagship things. Rita is our risk training avatar, and I'm going to be showing you an awful lot of stuff we've been able to do with Rita as the centerpiece of this presentation. But again, risk management, absolutely core to what staff need to be doing, but a topic that can be a bit dry if it's not done with a bit of imagination and a bit of impact. And finally, Orbi. Orbi is the digital face of the rollout of our Orbis electronic patient record. So again, we're going to be training our staff on how to use the new electronic patient record. And Orbi is our robot who is the digital face of that. So could we create digital trainers? Yes, we could. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, we've seen the two components. We've seen we can create training environments, and we've seen we can create digital trainers. I want to show in reality now how we deploy that by bringing them together. And for this session, we're going to primarily focus on Rita. So can we make training multi-mode? That's the question, okay? I want to show you how we can take the risk management training with Rita and deploy that content in all sorts of contexts and channels and ways of consuming that content, with artificial intelligence being harnessed at every single stage of the production and creative process. So here we are back in our Victorian classroom, risk management fundamental training session, okay? And we've switched across here into the interactive mode, okay? And so what we're just going to fire up here is this is the combined touchscreen training version of risk management training.
Hi there, it's Rita here. Rita stands for Risk Training at the top. I would like to share with you some guidance so that you have a better understanding of risk.
Okay, so there is Rita, and she's introducing us to risk management. Now, I mentioned about the toy boxes. Now, basically, there are about 14 different topics that you can you follow if you're doing the end-to-end risk management session. And they can be things like, how do I identify a risk? How do I score a risk? How do I treat a risk? What are the 4 levels of the risk management framework? What are smart actions? What do people need by smart actions? Okay. Now, what you can do with the interactive training is you can have a group of people in this room. We can train up to 30 people in this room at a time. And you can go through an interactive session. Okay. So the presenter, if we wanted to look at the basics of risk management, we should go, okay, Rita, tell us about the basics of risk management. And by clicking on that little box, it opens up the little box of goodies in there. And now, Rita.
We need to understand what a risk is. A risk is the effect of uncertainty against a set of objectives. This could be team objectives, trust, or strategic objectives, and the effect can be positive, negative, or a deviation from what you were expecting. Risks are things which might happen and stop us achieving set objectives, or otherwise impact on patient care and or the success of the organisation. When people think of risk, there is usually a negative perception, but by taking a calculated risk, you can achieve positive outcomes. To take a certain amount of risk which the organisation is willing to accept in pursuit of its long-term objectives is called risk appetite. However, there will be a limit and boundaries of the amount of risk the organisation is prepared to venture in the pursuit of its long-term objectives, and this is called risk tolerance.
Okay, so there we go. So that is a little 2.5-minute segment, a little nugget of learning, bite size that you can look at. Okay, so now we go to so we've got these we've got this learning. How can we actually evidence or reinforce with people in the room in the session about have you actually understood what you've heard? Okay, and so here is where we can go online and harness a tool that might be familiar with you. So if we just click here, what this is doing, this is firing up a tool called Menti. For those of you who are aware of it, welcome to the risk management training quiz. Okay, and what we can do, I'll just go across here and just add it on, move it on. So here we're using Menti, and what we're doing here is we could ask people in the room to see whether have they got the answer. So risk of the effects of uncertainties on what type of objectives? Trust objectives, or personal, or team, or strategic objectives. Okay. Now Menti can also be used online. People can be filling it in real time, and as they fill in their answers, it'll appear live on this screen. So you can then look at it. Okay, so they're saying, okay, we're saying that risks here are trust, strategic, and team objectives. Okay, so that's a way in which you can gauge the view of the room. Then what you can do with the interactive training is you're going to say, okay, well, let's see if that's true. So just here, using the interactive training. Okay, so risks to the effect of uncertainties against which type of objectives? Now, at this point, you could, the presenter could either do it, or we could get somebody from the room and say, okay, let's have a go. So I'm just going to say, okay, so risks to the effects of uncertainties against which type of objectives? I'll go, yep, trust objectives and team objectives. That's what I'm going to answer. Is that correct? Check. And it tells me, well, in actual fact, yeah, you're correct on that, but you didn't go strategic objectives and you also didn't do personal objectives. So in actual fact, you only got a score of 3 out of 4 answers correct. Still room for improvement, okay? And that's just one of the questions from the basics. Let me just close this down. But you can do any type of questions. So another question from the session we were just doing is, risk can have the following impacts. Well, it will definitely happen. It may or may not happen. It will stop us achieving set objectives. There's impact on patient care. Which are these correct? So this is a multi-check. You go, well, how about it will definitely happen, and it will stop us achieving set objectives. Is that correct? And again, it will tell the people in the room, no, that was wrong. That was correct. Score 3 out of 6, okay, etc. Still room for improvement, etc. So basically, once we've then done that, we could say, okay, show me another topic. So we go, right, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the 4 levels of risk management. And Rita would appear, and she'd tell us about the 4 levels of risk management, etc. And so what you could do with the people in the room, you could go through each of the topics one by one. You could do interactive quizzes as you go along. People could take notes. People could do it with Menti and embedded in it as an online tool. And that's a really much more impactful, enjoyable, and probably memorable way of consuming the content. Okay? So there we go. So if we go back to the thing, if we go back to our presentation, if we leave this room now. So here we are back in the risk management fundamentals session. So I think what I've shown you there is that yes, we can create striking environments. And yes, we can create digital characters. And yes, we can start to make training interactive using CTT. But I didn't say we wanted just to do that. I said, could we make training multi-mode? So you have seen one way at the moment in which we can deliver that training content, okay? That is in a room touchscreen training, okay? So the next one we want to look at, we then thought, right, making training multi-mode, could we deliver it on an iPhone or a tablet or an Android phone? Now, this is where the use of artificial intelligence really, really took off. Because for those of you who might be aware of what's happening with AI, Apple have embedded the AI using Codex or ChatGPT into their Xcode coding tool. Android are doing the same with their tool. So we were able to take the content that we've done and the questions that we've done, and we were able, solely using AI, to build something quite remarkable. So here you can see the Rita Risk Management Training app on an iPhone and on an iPad. And so you can already see the introductory session that she said on the big screens there. Okay, and when you look here, you can watch each of those bite-sized chunks of video. It'll tell you whether or not you've watched it. You can actually change the speed for accessibility. Everything is also got subtitles as well. Okay, it works again. It works exactly the same on an iPad, etc. Okay, here you can then, once you have watched the correct video, you can then ask the questions and answer the questions relevant to that topic. So here you're going, right, what are the 4 levels of risk management? It's going, good try, but you could try again. Okay, and what are the 4 levels of risk management? What level is explicitly named at the board? You go, is it the board assurance framework? Is it the trust risk register? Do you know what? I think it's a board assurance framework, okay? And I think the closest one is the team risk register. When you do that, it says, congratulations, you've passed this assessment. And when you go back, it will show you that you've actually passed it. We also have checklists here. So you can actually, the governance team can say, here is a series of things that you need to be able to assure yourselves that you're doing in order to say that you're doing everything possible. And it will store it in real time on your device. And also here, you can have a learning progress stream, which will actually tell you what you've done across assessments, across videos, etc. Now here, what we're doing, we're just finishing this checklist here. And then once you've done that, and you've completed the whole thing, it'll go, you've completed a checklist. But you might want to send that to a manager or send that to somebody to assure it, so you can generate a checklist report directly from the app. It will create a PDF, and there you go. And then it will tell you, there is a checklist that's been done, okay? And not only can you produce a report for checklists, you can produce a report for the videos that you've watched, you can produce a report for the assessments that you've taken. So at any time, you can actually track your progress and you can generate a checklist report. Now, the other thing that people who are familiar with education and training will know is we also have learning management systems, okay? Now, for those, without getting too technical about it, the way in which content is created to put onto learning management systems is through a facility called SCORM. But the more modern learning record systems, learning recording systems, actually use a format called XAPI, built into the back end of both the iPad, the iPhone and the Android app. As well as being able to produce a PDF, it could also generate the SCORM data and the XAPI data. So if we wanted to, we could hook this into a learning management system. Now that's incredibly powerful, because that means what we've done is we have taken the training content and we've now shown that anybody can watch it at a time of their choosing, at a place of their choosing, in the palm of their hand if they wish. Okay? They can create an assurance report, but they could also then feed that information into the central learning management system. And that is incredibly powerful. And all of this would have been impossible only literally a few months ago without the new AI tools coming on board. Xcode, Codex, ChatGPT, XAPI integration. So we are really, really excited about this. Compared with other things, similar to other things, we think we're the first NHS trust to be doing this. So that's iPhone and tablet. So we can make training multi-mode. So we've done the mode of face-to-face, we've done the mode of iPhone and tablet. But okay, what you saw is little interaction of films. Well, they're films. So we can also make those available on YouTube. We can make them available across CTV. So now, once they're available there, you can then take the multi-mode room into a classroom or a meeting room. So here, you've got the same content there, could be shown on a large screen with, say, a bunch of, say, 6 or 7 people in a team meeting. Here, what you're looking at here is a session that was done in this room with Orbi. We've actually got a physical Orbi talking tool. And this is a session for our ACEs, our Agent of Change experts. And they, at the moment, are seeing the training around the introduction of how the early features of the electronic patient record works. So I've shown you there iPhones, I've shown you tabloids, I've shown you Android handheld devices, I've shown you small team meetings, I've shown you individuals being able to generate learning reports, I've shown you how you can link it into a learning management system, I've shown you how you could do a wider system with 30 people in it. All of these multi-mode, okay? Now, there's one final bit. that we really thought, could we do this? Could we do this? Okay, because as you saw previously, for a number of years now, we've been experimenting and innovating with virtual reality. So the final thing we thought, okay, if we want to be really multi-mode, could we create a complete virtual reality immersive experience? So to really complete the set, could we make training multi-mode in virtual reality on an Apple Vision Pro? And I'm just about to show you, courtesy of Kyle from my team, we're not just going to explain how we're going to do it, we're going to show this in action. So Kyle, if you'd like to come along. So if you could explain what you're doing. Oh. So Kyle here is just going to stream what he's seeing on the virtual reality headset to this to this screen. For those of you who've not seen this, this is what Kyle is seeing. So you can actually see me here. So Kyle is mirroring the view of what he's seeing, and here, going into it, here is Kyle in the Victorian classroom. If you just slow down how you're, because it's quite thing behind, slow behind you. But what you can see here is there is Rita. Okay. When you have the headset on, you are actually in the learning environment. You are sitting in the Victorian classroom. It's another way of just making the content available in striking ways. Okay, here you can see that Kyle is sitting here looking at the basics, things about how the basics of risk management works. Exactly the same content that I was able to show you on the screens here, we were able to show you on the iPhone, we were able to show you on the tablet. Thanks very much, Kyle. Okay. So that's virtual reality. So just to bring us back to the question we were asking at the start of this edition of Combined Minds, using our new facility, CAI, Combined Artificial Intelligence, the question we asked was, can we harness and how can we harness artificial intelligence to transform learning and training at the Trust, building on those building blocks that we've built over the last 7 or 8 years, okay? Virtual reality, digital content, virtual production volumes, animation, etc. But moving it one step forward into the leading edge areas of virtual reality and artificial intelligence. So the questions we asked, could we create striking environments? Could we create digital trainers? And could we make training multi-mode? And I think the answer we're able to demonstrate to you is not only could we do this, but we are doing this. Thank you very much.